Well, hello everyone, and welcome to Blooped Live with Vanessa, me, and Vilas. Uh,
Me.
you. We're two friends who grew up in the Hare Krishna movement, and we're here to share our story. We're here on Substack live every Wednesday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And if you're somewhere in the middle, I have no idea what the time will be. You can use your phone to figure that out. Today we are going to be talking about and sharing like the Hare Krishna origin story in general. Why folks were in the airports. Because someone asked me the other day, why were you guys in the airports? And I was like, well, I wasn't, but my dad was. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. And then again, everything that we're sharing is just based on what we've known growing up and what we're told. So, and then Vilas, is there anything else? Did I miss anything? What else are we talking about today?
Well, a little bit more about our own personal family involvement and their beginnings and how we came to be there.
Okay. And then I think we talked about also like why there's such it seems like cults have a really big influence, especially in American culture, maybe across the world, but definitely from what we know in America. So we're going to just flush that out, talk about it. And if you guys have questions, or I think we can manage questions. Actually, I'm not quite sure yet. Do you know how to answer questions yet?
I don't know. Somebody pop a question in there and let's see if we can see it.
Let's see if we can see it. Um, so we're new to Substack. We're both new to co-hosting a podcast. I had started Blooped in 2018 initially, and Volas and I actually did a whole session and talked to. I had a few other guests come on, but to be on a new platform and doing this together, this is all new. So we really appreciate you guys uh, being flexible and hanging out with us.
Being
And
along for
as
the
we
ride.
yeah, and as we learn the ropes here too. So cool. I'm just seeing if there's like anybody's questions or I see on the side. So hi, I'm just gonna type in Julie.
Hi, Jacob.
Do you know Jacob?
Jacob Chatterton.
Greg and
You know who he is? He lives
Jacob.
on the other side.
Oh, cool. Okay. I just said hello because I'm just testing out our chat function. So would one of you just say hi back to us so I can see if this works? Awesome.
Hi, Julie.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you guys. This is going to be fun. Did I meet Jacob?
I don't know.
I don't think so. Okay.
He should tell us which Gurukuls he was in.
Oh, he was in a Gurukul?
Yeah,
What? Okay.
he's one of the OG as well. Yeah,
Oh my goodness.
we all come from the same place.
I guess so. Okay, that makes it even cooler. I love this.
Old Cooley. That's right.
OG.
OG.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay. All right. Jacob, it was in Dallas, LA, Vrindavan. I wonder, because Velas, you were in Dallas, right? I'm just going to skip into that real quick.
I
Okay.
was in Dallas, LA, and Vrindavan. But I
Okay.
wasn't Vrindavan only had a boys' ashram,
Okay.
but I just happened to be there
Yes.
adjacent.
Adjacent. Okay, and I was in Dallas too. So, anyways, cool. All right, I'm sure we've all crossed paths then. Or I
Yeah.
don't know about Jacob and I, but yeah. Awesome. Okay.
Oh, I was in Gitanagari too. I was never in Vancouver.
Okay. Oh, wow. Okay.
All right, backstories.
Backstories. Okay. Do you want to start?
I want to ask you why people were in the airports. Just kidding. Well, it's so hard to figure out where to start with a backstory because my first question is why? Why is the world so susceptible to being, indoctrinated into strange, out out of the world?
Outlier.
Yeah, I mean, why? how do people get so disenfranchised with the regular world and the systems that are in place that they're like, let me go live in some commune and believe in some really ridiculous, outlandish things and follow all of these rules and give up all of my worldly possessions and, you know, disconnect from my family and disregard my children and join a cult. Like, why would anybody do that?
Well, I think that, I mean, I love that question, and it's something that I've thought a lot about, and I didn't get a lot of clarity on it until like the last few years. And this is just my opinion, you guys. I've talked to some cult experts and obviously I've done a lot of healing for my stuff and really trying to understand, but this is just Vanessa's opinion, right? In my humble opinion, as we learn how to say. um,
It's been co-opted by normies now, you know.
I know.
Now they say it.
What was our thing in my humble opinion, Prabhu? I don't remember. Remember? Do you remember the
Well, offering obeisances is, Pam Ho.
Pam Ho? Okay,
Yeah.
that's what I was thinking. Okay. So here's my take on what this is, why people are so attracted to cults. I think the idea of a cult is culture. It's not a bad thing to be in a group. We survived for 300,000, close to 300,000 years in our little tribe and in our little villages and in these small contained spaces within a wider society. So I feel like cults are simply these, we all have that deep sense of belonging. We want to be around people where we share a goal, we share a background, we share a vision, and that's just intrinsic to our humanity. This is my take, okay? And as we've grown into this kind of blob of a society or culture where everybody's everywhere and there's no space, cults become this little village that we can belong to. So inherently, they're not bad, they're not negative, but we have seen a obnoxious amount of terrible things and terrible cult type situations. And I don't know why they go bad. To me, it seems to be very much like something in the human psyche that can just.
Well, it's also a power trip.
I was just gonna say, it can be exactly a place where people can continue a hierarchical system of control.
Have you figured out that it's mostly weak minds or people who uh, can't figure out how to conform in regular society, so they go and join this small pond, so that they can be a big fish in a small pond rather than way out in the world trying to have a job and pay a mortgage and whatnot. Like, have you heard that in any of your cult research?
I think that there's always people who want to be in charge and aren't going to fit into the regular society. But the truth is, our regular society is a cult. The US is a cult. Democrats are a cult. Republicans are a cult. QAnon's a cult. MAGA's a cult. Like, these are all cultic environments or cultic situations. You have this transcendent belief, you have your own language, you have somebody who knows it all, right? And I do believe that humans are kind of designed for some kind of structure, but I don't believe that people are necessarily weak-minded that are that buy into these cults, because you could also say that we're weak-minded for being in whatever cult we're in, political, religious, whatever. But I think it's what you do within that cult structure and how you manage power that makes the difference. And I
I've mentioned my friend Daniela
yeah,
multiple times, and she has this um, a list of 10 definitions of a cult, and some of them are are pretty locked in. Some of them can be broader, so you can apply it to, like you said, the Democrat or Republican or whatever. But there are some that are exclusive to
Mhm.
cults and bad organizations and bad leadership, and the high entrance and exit fee. The ends justifies the means, and just to take a little bit out of today's political news. Uh, the thing is that you do get ridiculed if you leave your party, and this is a high cost of exit, right?
Right.
So if there's a fence sitter or somebody on the other side, it's an us versus them mentality. That's one of them. Um, and self-sacrifice. I mean, unfortunately, MAGA hits a lot of this criteria, and being a regular Republican or Democrat doesn't necessarily, where
Exactly.
you can just assess information and decide individually how you feel about it. Whereas, if you're in a cult, you have to buy it hook, line, and sinker. You have to be all in, and you
Mhm.
have to be willing to turn a blind eye
Mhm.
to reality, or what you really are perceiving and experiencing, because the cult says so.
Exactly.
So there's a little bit of a nuanced difference between, you know, let's just use regular religion. If you're a Christian or a Jew or a Catholic or even a Muslim, where you belong, and you belong in the community, and you participate in the culture, which is the origin word of cult, which
Mhm.
became um, a little bit more boiled down to something bad. But
Mm.
um, you can leave. You can leave a temple or a community, a church, and you're not going to be ridiculed. You're not going to subcult. Yeah, is a better term, Jacob. But there are the ones that are specifically defined and used in such a negative, derogatory way when it
Mhm.
comes to cult. Those ones there's a cost
Yes.
to being in it, to
Mhm.
leaving it, to
Mhm.
believing, to participating. There's a cost for it.
Yeah.
And if you just have your own mainstream religious beliefs, you're not going to suffer the ridicule that you are if you are in or leaving a cult.
Exactly. Yeah.
So there's some differences, and if somebody's in a Democratic party, and then they choose to join the Republican Party because of X, Y, and Z,
Mhm.
they're not necessarily going to get ridiculed on the same level as if they're in MAGA, and this isn't a political commentary. I'm just
No.
using this as an example to like delineate between belief structures and cult belief.
Yeah. I was trying to create a broader perspective that cultic environments can exist in our everyday normal life without us actually noticing that we're in it. And then you just kind of take that down into like a cult the way we grew up, and you say, okay, so in this smaller cult, you just can see it more clearly. And I think that that speaks to our insane need for belonging and wanting to connect and be together. And the problem, though, is now you have systems of control that get introduced. And when you have systems of control with every pod you're creating, you have someone who's a leader. And unfortunately, with cults, you have these really charismatic people who are not necessarily good people, and often they end up going without any checks and balances, and it allows them to get away with their worst instinct, and it allows them to be um without a check, right? Without anyone saying, "Hey dude, that's not cool," or "You shouldn't do this X, Y, or Z." They're just doing whatever they want, and so it's unchecked power. And that's where the problem, I think, starts to really happen because everybody's so bamboozled by these guys. They've tapped into either your need for belonging or your desire to connect with God or like whatever the million things are that people are craving or wanting. It just takes someone who's manipulative enough or charismatic enough to be like, okay, I can mess with that. And that, like, I remember asking Yanya one time, do you think that all cult leaders start out bad? And she's the one that she said, no, a lot of them start out with this good intention, but because they have no check to their power, then it becomes corrupt. And that's what happens in most cults. Like Prabhupada maybe wasn't a terrible person when he started the Hare Krishna movement, but then unchecked power, and then all his disciples went unchecked, and it turned into a highly abusive, you know, the environment that we sadly grew up in.
So let's go into the mid-60s and tell me why Prabhupada felt like he could come to the United States and start a movement.
Yeah. Honestly, I mean, my dad was a musician, and my dad joined the Hare Krishna movement. And one of the things that they were very influenced by were number one, the Beatles. So the Beatles were chanting these Hare Krishna mantras, and they were playing musical instruments. And it was so that their music was so profoundly life changing for people of that time that I think that got a lot of people interested and open, or you could say vulnerable, to the cults that were going to be kind of coming into play at that point. You also want to think about these kids who grew up in this 50s and 60s, like our parents, they were coming at a time where religion was kind of falling apart a little bit. It was post World War II, the Korean War. We were going into Vietnam, and God wasn't saving anybody, right? And people were starting to feel like, God, there's something more than just this religion or what my parents are telling me. There was this collective rebellion everywhere. I think spurred on by music and war. That's my opinion. And it got people just thinking, there's got to be a better way to life. There's got to be something else I can do. There's got to be something more to all of this. And it was like this collective awakening. And that's where I really wanted to understand my parents. Like, what in the world did you look for this? Why did you join the Hare Krishnas? And their thing was, we didn't want to live the life our parents were living, which is go to church, get a job, buy a house. That just seemed dreadful and boring. Cue in the Beatles and music and access to India and all these different thoughts and ideas and ways to live and foods to eat, and people were just activated. And so then cue in the Hare Krishna thing, and now you had like some structure to get out of the world that they were rebelling against, and it seemed kind of utopic. Like, who doesn't want to just live with your friends and play music and eat cool food and dress in different clothing? You know, they thought it was, I believe they really thought it was just fun and an antidote to the American materialism that was kind of infecting everybody's brain at the time, which resulted in war, which just makes people go, even more rebellious.
So Prabhupada decided that this was a great time and America was ripe for the picking to come here and spread what he thought, as Jacob says, was a better culture.
Mm-hmm.
Because apparently a lot of Eastern countries think that Western culture doesn't exist. But in fact, we do exist. We are a melting pot.
We're melting.
But
Yeah.
but it's true. I mean, he came here and he was like, "Oh, I'm going to teach everybody how to live the
Mm-hmm.
Vedic way." Thousands of years ago,
Mm-hmm.
a culture that we've long since left behind and progressed past.
Yeah.
We have decided that the value of humans is better than it was thousands of years ago,
Mm-hmm.
let alone women. He did not believe women had value. He didn't believe children had value.
Well, clearly he left his family. I mean, I could never respect someone who leaves their family Um, and I don't, to me, that was like would have been a huge red flag. Like this guy just dumps his wife and kids to go do what, you know?
The
So
wife that was 10 years old when they got married,
was she really? I didn't know that.
something around there.
Yeah.
She was
Wow.
a child.
She was a child.
Yeah.
And to say that his culture was better, what, child bride is better? I mean, we both experienced some degree, obviously more than me, but yeah, I mean, what part was better? You leave your kids, you send them off to school, you leave your wife after you just had kids with her, so she has to deal with this, and she's widowed at 19 or 20 or 24, whatever. I mean, exactly, I wanna know, like, what part of his culture was he really trying to bring that was better? We didn't see it.
So my parents were one of the maybe first 50 to join the Hare Krishnas. Prabhupada came here in 1965, and had a storefront in New York, and then was actually in San Francisco, in Haight-Ashbury
Mhm.
in, I wanna say, '66, and that's when my parents went and heard him speak. They went to Haight-Ashbury and heard a lecture and, decided to join. I mean, my parents were just 2 kids going to Pasadena City College, and, um, I guess maybe they were dating, but, then they heard his lecture and peace, love, um, it's very shiny. It's very shiny. You see all the colors and the orange robes and the sort of freedom um, without the wars and everything. And the thing is that it didn't play out that way. If we're
Right.
going to fast forward the 50 years that we are, but it didn't really turn out to be peace and love.
Mhm.
But for outsiders and for these young um, adults, if we want to call them that, it looked really beautiful and peaceful.
Yeah.
And for some, they needed that escape from the
Mhm.
world. And unfortunately, I I don't I don't think that it's a safe place for any child to be in a cult, let alone any woman. But
Mhm.
I think that a lot of members of society that joined the temple were because they couldn't function in society. They
So
couldn't get a job. They couldn't do the mainstream, and this was the best way. Sorry, what?
no, I didn't mean to interrupt that thought. That was a good thought. Keep going.
I mean, I've just in assessing the other adults and the parents of my friends that I grew up with, I question, um, whether they were even capable of having a job or functioning in mainstream society, and this was a perfect place to be. You could join this commune, you give up your worldly possessions. Well, you probably didn't have any, so it really didn't matter, but now you have a place to sleep, you
Mhm.
have food, and you just have to give of yourself 24/7 for the
Yeah.
rest of your life.
I don't know that there's a blanket statement that would be fair because
Agree.
my mom was extremely independent, super feisty, extremely creative. She worked at Ann Taylor back in Boston. She had a job at 15 or 16. So she worked there. She did a couple of other retail jobs. My dad was an amazing musician, just an incredible guitarist. They had a band called Soundtrack, and they performed all over Boston. I mean, these were highly capable, creative people. And I think that what happened for them is first, they didn't know what they were getting into. It was a slippery slope. So I don't think either one of them joined because they didn't want responsibilities or to do life, but they didn't want to do it the way with the options that they saw. And they didn't want to, they wanted something that they were on acid at Jesus Christ Superstar with a Bhagavad Gita in their hands. And they were just like, whoa, man. Like they were so high and tripped out. They're like 17 and 20 and just like looking for something that was original and different. And they didn't want to do the Irish Catholic, way they had grown up, where my mom was getting smacked around by her nuns, and my dad didn't have, like, a religious upbringing, but it was just boring. American culture was to me, they were just bored, and they wanted something more fun, and to your point, sparkly and lively. No one thought that their kids were gonna end up being abused and that they would be completely, stripped of their sovereignty and agency at a deep, deep core level, right? I mean, I think they just thought the food was great and it would be fun.
Well, when we get into a later podcast of your personal origin story, I will ask, when did they know and what did they do? And so these are questions that we all ask ourselves
Mhm.
now. How is it possible that our parents watched what was happening to us and didn't do anything? And where was the cognitive dissonance?
Mhm. Yeah. I think that was the scary part, is one of the things with a cult is that makes a cult work and the systems of control within the cult survive is isolation. And that's one of the things that they did with us. They isolated us from our parents, and by proxy sort of isolated our parents from their parents. So there was no external influence that could correct the entanglement that was actually happening, the terrible things that were happening. No one from the outside could have access or know what was going on.
So where did your parents join? What year was that?
I was 2, so 1971 to 73, unofficially in Boston Common. They were hanging out at the Boston Temple and, um, decided that the food was fantastic and the music was great, and John Lennon was singing Hare Krishna, so that was really cool, George Harrison. So for my parents in particular, that's what kinda got them. And then their idea that you could live a God-conscious life versus just this, hungry, greedy capitalist kind of thing. And that's what got them.
We've been fighting capitalism for a good long time, haven't we?
Yeah, we benefit from it, but we also fight it. And so I think back in the '60s, people were so or early '70s were so disheartened by war and so many people being, trampled on, that they did want to escape from it. And the Hare Krishnas, were one of them. The Moonies were one, whatever else. What other cults were there back then? Do you remember or no?
Was Rajneesh around yet? Well, there's a whole bunch of Eastern philosophy cults, but certainly. Oh, what about TM, Transcendental
That like
Meditation?
Jacob says experimental communes. Yeah, that's a great way to say it. Jacob, do you know
Yeah.
any other commune or cults that were started up back then? We were always taught to kinda be afraid of the Moonies, and they were terrible people, and TM was so bad, and I don't know, we just were taught that anything outside of ours, of the Hare Krishnas, was sort of less
Well,
than.
that's another one of those us versus them
Mhm.
philosophies, mentalities, and anything that's an us versus them doesn't end in a peaceful resolution.
Right.
It's a divisive, you know, uh, standpoint,
Yeah.
because any time where I'm gonna draw a line and I'm gonna be like, "Only redheads and no blondes," like,
Mhm.
then we can't continue this conversation.
Right.
Why can't we all just agree that, whatever color hair it is what it is, and let's move on from there? It's like,
Yeah.
why does it matter? I mean, I'm an atheist, so it's easy for me to say this, but um, all of the gods are the same as all of the gods.
Mhm.
If you are truly a good person, show me.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter which language you speak to your God or which denomination you choose to identify him, because usually him. And it doesn't matter at the end of the day, because you're not actually looking for the good in the book. You're
Mhm.
looking for will I be accepted into heaven at
Mhm.
the end of my life when in this moment, you're maybe not even being a good person.
Yeah.
But a lot of these religions and indoctrinations require you to to have this constant so you can be forgiven at the end of your life. You could be a horrible rapist, murderer, serial killer,
Oh,
and if you say Hare Krishna at the end of your life, you're going to go to Godhead.
yeah.
If
But isn't
you ask God for forgiveness, or if you say 3 Hail Marys, you're gonna get in. It's that concept is so agonizing to me that somebody can be absolved of all of their misdeeds by just going, "I accept Jesus Christ."
that
And I find that unacceptable. I
yeah,
find it unacceptable
we
because
disagree. We disagree.
we disagree.
Yes. Okay, so last week we introduced the concept, this is my thing, is like, at any point in your life, no matter what's going on, you have the power to disagree. You can disobey and disagree. So when you hear us saying it, that's where it comes from. Um, we do not tolerate this anymore.
I
Um,
don't think it's acceptable
I know.
for religion. I was it last week that I was talking about a video I saw of a woman who was accusing a pastor of raping her and taking her virginity when she was 16 years old, and then at the end of the video, you see the entire Julie sent me the video, the entire congregation wrap around the pastor saying, "You're forgiven."
Wow. And not taking care of the young woman or the
I
person.
mean, context. I don't know the rest of it, so I don't know if they offered some but
Yeah.
for me, I'm like, "No, you don't just that is unacceptable. You
Yeah.
can't just be like, 'Yeah, it's okay. You said Jesus, so we're all good now.'" No, absolutely not.
You opened my eyes up to this concept of non-forgiveness, and I really didn't agree with you about this for a
You
really
disagreed.
I disagreed for a long time. I'm very much like, "Let's be friends and let's do this," and lately, only lately in the last couple of weeks, since you and I have started talking a lot more about this and dredging some of this stuff up, you know what? I didn't feel like I had a right to my anger, and I didn't discover that until last night, by the way. I've never felt like I've had the right to my anger. I felt like I had to just accept all the things that have happened and going on and these people or whatever. And I have found forgiveness for some people, meaning I understand you're an asshole. I understand you're a terrible person. I understand you're an abuser, and I'm going to let this go because I'm not going to be angry at you forever. So that was kind of like where I was coming from in this idea of forgiveness. But only lately, literally in the last couple of weeks, I'm like, you know what? I'm actually not going to give my forgiveness out like I used to because there's some people that actually don't deserve it. And I think that there's something really powerful in that.
Well, I
And
think that
because to your point, it's allowing people to get away with things that should not be gotten away with. Jesus died for our sins, so-called, so the Christians say, but so you can rape and murder and all these terrible things that are going on, to your point earlier, and Jesus is just gonna forgive you? So then you just do whatever you
you
want
can
and
do whatever you want. You can
yeah,
sin all you want. Jesus died for your sins, so don't make it worth nothing. Don't let him have died for nothing. Go sin away, and
yeah,
then just say Jesus, and then you're good. Like,
and
it's absolutely reprehensible.
it is, I think it's tragic, and then the way we grew up, and I don't know if any of you and, those who are listening are watching with us right now, but I'm curious what your experience was. In the Hare Krishna movement, we were told that's your karma if you were abused or hurt or whatever was happening to you. So you had not only on the Christian side, like the abusers are getting forgiven for whatever they're doing so they can keep going at it. But then and the way we grew up, it was our fault and we were responsible for the bad things that happened to us. So you just have like no place to go with consequence. You have no place to go with that experience.
So, the the concept of suffering, gets twisted to make you feel like if you're suffering, God only hands the biggest challenges to those who he feels are worthy, or you're suffering now, which means you're getting rid of all of your bad karma, and now you're going to be accepted into Godhead because you will have already, you know, uh, paid out your your karma. But back to forgiveness for 1 second, it's gaslighting.
Yeah.
I don't owe anyone forgiveness for anything. I
Mhm.
I I don't I don't owe anyone. If I choose myself to
Mhm.
forgive for somebody's bad actions, then that's because I feel that they have really gone through great efforts to repair and repent and have
Mhm.
paid somehow,
Yeah.
because I haven't seen justice for any of the bad things that have happened to me.
Right.
I have not seen justice for the horrors that I've seen in my life.
Mhm.
So, but I have been told, "Oh, so have you forgiven?" I'm like, "But why?"
Mhm.
No. Do I Oh, owe forgiveness? I must pay out more? I'm paying the suffering of those deeds. I'm living the life of having experienced the pain. And now you're asking me if I have given them forgiveness. Absolutely not. I don't owe them anything. I'm square with myself.
Yeah.
And if there is a God, as twisted and horrible as that being must be,
I
given that
agree.
he's allowing children to be raped and die of cancer, I can't reconcile with that. But given that, how do I forgive?
Mhm.
Am I supposed to forgive God?
And I know, and it's so complex too, because it's, is it God? Is it the people? And then we're just dealing with ideas around God because there's so many different gods. So which God and which era does this God come from? And what language and what color is the God's skin? Like, I don't know. I think it's confusing when you get into the idea of forgiving God. Um,
Blue, obviously, like Avatar.
yes, exactly. No, I think forgiveness is a really interesting concept when it comes to situations where someone's sovereignty, their soul basically has been um, violated, right? Through religious coercion or physical abuse or what all the different things that can happen. Um, I think it's a cool concept. And I can say there are some people that I have forgiven, but there are some people that I found out last night that I don't forgive. And so for you, though, I mean, I'm curious about this concept of forgiveness. Have you ever felt like you had to forgive, or like what's your relationship with Prabhupada, the guy that brought all this to the US?
I don't owe him anything. I do believe that Prabhupada was the original poison that brought the society that you and I were raised in to this country, planted the seed. Our parents ate the apple, and we are products of the poisonous tree.
Mhm.
And what we're trying to do is survive against the poison. We are trying to thrive, regardless of the fact that we come from that poison.
Yeah.
And I do think that it's critical for us to constantly examine, which is what we're doing and what we do, which is, how we ended up here together. But I think it's necessary and I'm open. I have an open mind. I'm willing to evolve. If you show me a different way, if you show me something that says, hey, forgiveness does this to you, forgiveness allows this. And I've tried forgiveness and I've tried non forgiveness, and neither change the outcome or my feelings. In
Mhm.
the same way that if you ask me if I would like to see the person who raped me when I was 13 years old castrated, I mean, for
That's a
funsies,
hard one.
but not it's not gonna change me. I will not be better. I had the opportunity to, shoot a gun once. I'm not a gun person, I absolutely hate guns, but I was told, "Don't hate something that you don't know or understand," so I was like, "Alright." So I went to the range, and I was told, put the face of somebody you absolutely loathe. And I put Bhavananda's face
Is that
and
the
I shot
yeah, okay, never
and
mind.
I shot it and I did not feel better.
Yeah.
So if he dies, if I shoot him in the face, is my life going to be better? No. I
Mhm.
am not that kind of, I don't get that kind of uh, feeling. I am not a revenge kind of person.
Yeah,
When I talk about justice, I'm talking about reform justice.
yeah,
I'm talking about let's change laws. Let's make people more aware of what they're getting themselves into, more aware of the world, more aware of pitfalls
mhm,
and mistakes that happen in society that cause them to believe certain things that are wrong or bad for
right.
society, for children, for women. Let's talk about it. Let's raise awareness
Mhm,
and let's change minds and change legislation and change the world
yeah,
because that's the kind of justice I want to see. Whether somebody was killed or castrated or put to death because they did something horrible, that does not fix it. That
yeah,
doesn't fix it.
I agree.
So,
I
in the same way that forgiveness
mm,
doesn't fix it.
yeah. Yeah, sorry. I have somebody leaving the house. No, I agree with you. I love the idea that you're talking about in terms of reforming versus punishment. Because throughout history, we've had people who've been killed because they've done heinous things. We've had the death penalty. It doesn't do anything to elevate the consciousness or elevate your awareness or make a criminal go, "Oh, I'm not going to rape a little kid." It's not stopping anything. And so I think to your point, the education piece is so essential is that instead of teaching people that God is going to punish you if you do something bad, we need a more intrinsic education system that helps people kind of get in tune with their own sense of morality or, we teach what is right and wrong, but not from a religious perspective, not because you're going to be rewarded or punished in this life or next life, right? Because that creates so much distance from your actual behavior. And like earlier, it allows people to do horrible things, but they're going to be forgiven. So, whatever.
Did I send you the thing about horizontal morality versus vertical morality?
No, I would love to see that. I always
I'm gonna.
call it like relative moral or what do I call it? Relative morals
So
thing.
so
Oh, relativism is what I call it. That's what it was.
if I remember and understand it correctly, so um, there's a kind of morality that is just like God says, be good, and so you're good because God said. But then it's within parameters like be good and do these things, and then there's the horizontal morality, which is I'm being good because it's the right thing to do,
Mhm.
not because God told me.
Yeah.
I'm being moral and ethical because it's the correct way to live in
Mhm.
society.
Mhm.
And there's this I was actually telling
Maybe you can
trying
share that with all of us when you get it. We you guys will post this concept of morality in our feed just so that, it could have
I will. I'll post some more on it. But it's an interesting concept because I think there's a disconnect from religious people that are like, no, my morality comes from my religion and God. And it's like, okay, but are you moral because God said or because you are moral?
right.
So it's an interesting self exploration
Mhm.
to try and delve into to find out if you're a inherently ethical and moral person or if you're just indoctrinated, which is
Mhm.
fine, but the results are different.
Their results are different and it's so contextual. Like every religion has these rules for morality within these certain contexts. And so I really think that religion keeps the human psyche in an infantile state. You're constantly in a state that mommy, daddy know better, and mommy, daddy are going to punish you, and you better not do something bad because mom and dad are going to watch you, and then you're going to get something taken away or whatever. So religion keeps people infantile. It keeps an entire race infantile. And until we, to your point, find a morality that lives within us outside of the context of religion, then we can evolve into something that actually is kinder, is more generous, is more safe and equal. But I think as long as we're relying on some external mom and dad to bitch slap you when you do something wrong or to, whatever, people aren't going to make the right decisions because they don't know how.
And I really love these conversations because I want us to be able to invite everyone into dialogues like this, like evolved dialogues that are picking apart people's beliefs, not picking apart like trying to dismantle them, but like looking at them and seeing why we do the things we do, why we feel the way we do, why we hold the beliefs that we do, and what that means. I'm excited about all of the dialogue in the chat. It's really cool, and these are amazing friends of ours.
I want to. Jacob just said real quick, if you're finished with your thought,
is about letting go of the anger.
So that's something that I always felt was, I agree with that actually. But what I got to last night was the very first time I ever connected with the idea of, like, I didn't have a right to my anger, so I've never been fully angry enough to actually forgive. Because and I know that sounds so a little bit convoluted, but I literally, like, bawled my eyes out last night because I remembered something that happened with my mom, and I thought, "I don't forgive you for doing that. You literally ruined my heart and, like, completely fucked up my foundation for everything." And it was the first time yesterday that I actually saw the pattern and understood all the different layers. And that's when I realized I internalized everything. So I was angry, but I wasn't angry at the right things. And I didn't know how to, especially when it gets complicated, right? When it's your parent and there's so many layers of, like, love and all these things. So to your point, Jacob, I don't think we can forgive until we actually feel the fullness of our anger. And then maybe on the other side of that, that's possible. I have gotten there with a few people. Lakshmi Moni was one of my ashram teachers.
Ugh.
I have forgiven.
Really?
Yeah, she's not me. And when I say forgiven, meaning I'm not saying it's okay that she did what she did.
Does she deserve your forgiveness?
Well, you guys have me questioning this now. Like, I'm literally having this existential fucking crisis because I'm like, have I actually forgiven? And are they worthy? So thank you. And my brain hurts because you know me, I'm always like, I've forgiven them. And I thought and felt like that was right. And it felt good to do that until these last 2 weeks and yesterday, where I'm like, wait a minute. I don't actually know. So I'm coming to you a little bare-hearted right now because I don't actually know anymore.
So
It's just something I'm having fun exploring.
So my question, again, I made the example of if I, if somebody who has harmed me dies, am I going to feel better? No, it's the facts still exist. So to Jacob's point, I don't feel like if I forgive them, that is a method of letting go. I would have to forgive and let go.
So they're two separate things.
These are two separate things.
Yeah.
And I don't owe somebody forgiveness, and also I can let it go.
Yeah.
I have let go. My mother did monstrous things in my life. Unforgivable things. The word exists for a reason, and the unforgivable only applies to my mother. it doesn't apply to me.
Mhm.
Unforgivable are things that she did. I am a very forgiving person.
Yeah.
And I think what that looks like on the outside is that I kinda let things go easily.
Yes.
I let things go all the time. I'm like, "Oh, it's all right. It's not worth oh, they must have been having a horrible day." I'm driving down the road and uh there's like some maniac and I'll be like, "Okay, they must be on their way to the hospital to see their mother." Like, I am very forgiving.
Mhm.
Some things are unforgivable, and they are the things that are the worst that happen to us. Letting go of it is different, and anger is a whole different topic, in my opinion. Anger is a method for us to hold on to life when sadness would like to take us down into the dark depths of despair.
Mhm.
So, if I don't get angry that bad shit happened, I'm going to go crawl in my bed and cry until the world ends
Yeah.
because it's so devastatingly sad. What
Yeah.
is happening in the world is devastating. So, what can we do? We can get angry so that it'll give us energy. It's
Yeah.
fuel,
Yeah, I
but it's
think
not
anger in the
rage necessarily. Sorry,
yeah.
go.
No, I was gonna say, I think anger is an essential part of your healing and, like, this letting go process, and there is something to, like, you can you have a right to your anger, you have a right to your rage. It's just what we do with it and how we channel that power that can make it destructive or useful, right?
Yeah, and I really think that and this the new age term of gaslighting. I know all of the fancy terms that are coming to light as therapy becomes more pervasive and useful in society, but gaslighting is something that we've all experienced our entire lives and we've just now sort of labeled it. But anger gets a bad rap.
Yeah.
And it's like, I think we get especially women, and I don't know, men in the chat, tell us, oh, no, men get a bad rap for anger too. And anger needs to be channeled and identified.
Yeah.
Why are you angry? Have you been stifled? Have you been injured? Have you been hurt? If somebody is hurting you, guess what? It's fair to be angry.
Yeah,
It's good
exactly.
to be angry.
Yeah.
If there is horrible stuff happening in our government, we can be angry. If people are hurting children, let's be angry. Anger isn't a bad thing. We just have to uh, pick it away from, like, just random rage
Yeah.
and hate. That's different. So, pick it apart, look at it, figure out, like, what is this anger from? My mother had once told me that I was just full of anger and rage, and I was like, "No, it's just devastating sadness, but thanks for that."
That's a good
So
say it. I like how you're kinda separating that, and I think that'll be helpful for a lot of people who grew up in a cultic situation because they don't often feel they have a right to their emotions. They're dismissed. They're constantly sort of overpowered. So to say to someone who has been through a high control environment and has no idea what to do with their internal environment, to say, like, anger is good. It will create action. We're not trying to, and to make the distinction between anger and hate. Those are very different energies and they can have very different consequences. Hate is very destructive, right? While anger can be extremely purifying in the right context. Um,
and can also be stress inducing, too much cortisol release. I hear you, Jacob,
if
and
you're
and
holding on to all of it all the time, for sure.
And this is why self-awareness is critical because I can be angry and say to myself, "Why exactly am I angry?" And I go, "Okay, it's
Mhm.
because I'm very sad at this situation. I'm
Yeah.
angry that my friend died, and so it's because I'm sad or I'm
Mhm.
processing
Mhm.
what happened." But we're also not connecting anger to action. Like we have to make sure that when you're looking at how you're feeling and it's anger, that anger is not coming out and hurting others. The moment you impact or hurt someone else, that's a line. And so you can feel angry, you can feel sad, you can feel any emotion you want, but the moment that emotion comes out and impacts somebody else,
Mhm.
that's a problem, and you need to regulate that and manage that.
Right.
Any of your emotions.
Well, and one of the things that I love that you've done, especially in which y'all will hear Vilas's story next week, but how you took the anger of what happened to you in your teenage years, and now you're actually doing something to prevent this from happening. Like it's taking that anger and the experience to make sure that that doesn't happen to other girls. And that is such a powerful way. Like maybe if you didn't have like whatever, let's just say you have that anger, now it's the fuel to go ahead and make change possible. It's horrifying that that happened to you, and it's amazing that you've decided to not let that anger completely destroy you inside, right? Because I think a lot of times people internalize that anger, it makes them sick, they're alcoholics or addicts. When we internalize any of these emotions, it literally destroys us from the inside out. So I like what Julie's saying too. It's like, yeah, staying angry is like swallowing a poison and hoping the other person suffers. What you're doing is alchemizing your anger and the injustice that you had and saying, I'm not going to let this happen anymore. I mean, that's a really powerful act. And I would say if you said to me, I will never forgive Bhavananda,
Bhavananda.
I'd be like, yeah, don't. But now what you're doing is saying, and I'm also going to make sure this doesn't happen to other girls. So it's just this really powerful alchemy that you're practicing that a lot of survivors do get to that point, and sadly a lot don't. And we have some friends who've committed suicide, who are super depressed, who haven't gone on to be able to function. And you do see that in a lot of cults where this all that rage and anger of being dismissed and overpowered and isolated and all the things that can happen within those high control systems that can eat people alive. And that's the real crime of those situations is almost more than the actual whatever the initial act is, the fact that now that person has to suffer in that garbage for their entire life and or be impacted by it. And you're just taking the chains. You're saying like, I'm not going to let this happen to your little inner girl, your inner child, or any of the other girls, hopefully in the future, that will sometime in the future never have to deal with this kind of environment again or situation.
I remember, Jacob. I remember. I know.
I'm so sorry, Jacob. I didn't know.
Yeah.
No.
I remember. Yeah. It's the consequences are awful. And I think that having these discussions and obviously we have a lot to say. And I love these dialogues. I love this. This is great. This is awesome. Um, we intended to be on for about 45 minutes. We've been on for an hour.
What?
We have lots. We have lots to talk about.
We do.
Um,
Didn't
don't
even realize it.
don't want to. I know, Kunja. I know.
I'm really sorry. And that's such the thing that we have seen so often is people are complex. Humans need belonging, they need community, they need acceptance. And when we see the cult that we grew up in, how many people were so negatively impacted by it and continue to be negatively impacted because half of these people don't want to look at the reality of what happened to us. And then the other people that were the abusers literally will walk by you and not even look at you in the face. Not that you want to look at their freaky little eyes, but like, you abused me and you can't even look at me, like, I'm gonna look at you. That's like my way of when I see Lakshmi Moni, she will keep her head down, and I just wanna be like, "What's up?" You will look at me. You will acknowledge this somehow. But anyways, I just think that what we're doing is just trying to shine the light on everything, and I don't know, maybe our podcast or our stories will help other people from getting themselves into these kinds of situations, finding a path to healing and knowing that you're not alone.
Yeah, and to your constant message, finding joy, and to my constant message, finding camaraderie and less aloneness, so that you know that we're out here and we're fighting for you.
Yeah. Um, so to conclude today, we did talk about a lot of stuff. Should we wrap up with what blooped is?
Let's wrap up with what blooped means.
Okay.
Jacob, what do you remember that blooped means?
The reason I called this blooped is as we were growing up, like we left when I was like 11 or 12. And there was always this devotees and fringies and bloops or bloopies.
Carmies.
And the what?
Carmies.
Please. And there were all these like funny words.
Freedom. He says freedom. Freedom.
I love it. So I remember the word, someone once told me when I was a kid that blooped is the sound that the spirit soul makes when it drops out of like Krishna consciousness. And I thought that was really funny. Um, and it just stuck with me. And as my rebellion, when I left, I was like, I'm a proud bloopy.
Bloopy.
So I thought it was just a funny freaking word.
We
And
are proud bloopies.
yeah, and it also like now as we got older, and then I started the podcast years ago. It was like this is about choice and freedom and sovereignty. And
Do you know what our podcast followers are going to be? Bloopies.
I have a seal for you guys that you can put anywhere you want. That's your certified bloopy.
Love it. But
What do you remember about the word?
yeah, blooped means you failed. Bloop. If you think about bloopers in like, outtakes and like bloopers that, they're fails. And so you were not you're not bloopers. You're not a blooper, Julie. Um well we're co-opting it. We're
Bringing it back.
we're taking it back. We're taking it back and making it about freedom. Because their definition of failed is our definition of thrived. We got out, we survived, we're living our best life. And I think that my concept when I was little of people that blooped were that they couldn't be they couldn't they weren't good enough to be they weren't exalted, they weren't pure, they weren't devotional. And so they blooped. They failed. They fell out of God's good graces.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, uh, being able to be on this side of it, I think, is a beautiful thing because knowing that somebody else called you something like woke, like, yes, I'm woke because I'm awake right now and I'm aware and I'm watching and I'm seeing. So, yep, totally woke and totally in the know in the same way that I'm also blooped and left the Hare Krishnas and happily on this side of it with my eyes wide open
Yes.
and aware of what I'm doing. So I am grateful. I'm grateful for this podcast. I am grateful for you, Vanessa. I really appreciate it. And say three things that define your mission, your life.
Oh God, I don't know if I can do it in 3. Okay. My mission in my life and with this podcast is to help women or help anybody really tune into their natural sense of joy. My natural joy saved my life. I was playful, I was rebellious, I was always goofing off and laughing and saw things from a different perspective. So I'm a very proud bloopy because I failed at that fake abusive religious garbage and they did not win. They did not take away my joy. And so I think that's my mission is just to say like no one can ever take away your love and your joy. nothing and no one. So I'm just here to remind people that and help people find their way back to that.
You own that,
I
and you deserve that.
How about you, my friend?
Mine are, I'm very focused on gratitude. I just realized that when I was like, "Oh my god, I'm so grateful for this moment," because, I just feel like if I can highlight all of the things that I'm grateful for, it'll enhance them, and all of the things that are maybe more stressful, it'll make them less. So I'm happy, when I'm focused on the things that bring me joy. I really thought you were gonna say joy, because I think of joy when I think of you.
Oh, yeah.
Um, but, also compassion. I try really hard to stay in a place of being compassionate to people, even if I don't understand or accept them. I want I want them to know that they have a space and they're legitimate humans regardless, even if we disagree. I always wanna have that compassion, um, and kindness, and also just curiosity. I want to know what people are like. Maybe maybe something I think is simple is something they've never heard of before as a solution or as a possibility. And this is the part where I want to bring all of us together in such a way where, like, yes, we have very strong moral standpoints and we have very strong opinions on lots of things, but that doesn't mean we can't have discussions about them in like a respectful dialogue
Mhm.
out
I
of
will
curiosity.
I will say someone said to me, 'cause the other component of my life is, like, friendship, it's a big deal to me, and someone said to me, one of our friends, he's like, "Well, can you be friends with Nazis?" And I didn't even address it yet because I was like, "No, of course not." But it was there are some times where I don't wanna actually know, like, from a like, to your I don't wanna know what a Nazi I don't wanna have a conversation with someone who is like that. I don't really wanna know why they think that way anymore. I used to care, but I don't now. So
Well, I think it's also important, even though we can leave our hearts open for people that may be hateful and have completely differing moral standpoints. I think I don't want to give them a voice.
exactly.
So I think maybe let them, sit in their room and time out until they can figure out what they did wrong. And then they can come back out into society where we all are out here trying to be nice to each other.
Yeah, yeah, and I think compassion, all of the things that you shared, I 100% agree with. You embody this, so I feel grateful that you're on this journey with me and we're doing this, and I hope that we can really have some positive impact in the world.
I'm excited.
Yeah.
We will be
Yeah, everyone
here.
joining us.
We'll be here next week on Wednesday at 4. Come back and talk to us again. Loved you guys in the chat.
And I have a question for you guys. If there's a topic around something in this realm that you want us to flesh out in a bigger conversation, just I think the lost, everybody here. I don't think I know all of you, but let her know and we'd love to include, your thoughts or your stories on our on this platform. So yeah, awesome. Thank you guys. We'll be back next Wednesday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 1 p.m. PST. So, look forward to seeing you all then
I
too.
think Jacob's on PST. I think
Oh,
you will be back on EST, right?
I'll be back in Savannah next week. So, yeah, I'm in the middle right now in MST. So,
All right. Love you guys. Thanks for
thank you
joining
for being
us.
here. See you next
All
week.
right. Bye.